sex addiction. Yes, with stars like Tiger. Actor David Duchovny has admitted having a problem with it. Even a very popular reality show on VH1 focuses on treatment of the condition. But the question is, what exactly does it mean to be addicted to sex, and can you be? Juju takes a closer look.
It's a hot topic, I have to say. The National Council on Sexual Addiction Compulsivity estimates there are as many as 24 million Americans who are sex addicts. And yet there's a very vigorous debate raging, even among professional psychotherapists, as to whether there's enough data to prove that sexual addiction is real.
It was the apology heard round the world, hitting at least 6 of the 12 steps of addiction recovery.
I was unfaithful.
Tiger Woods never mentioned sex addiction, and it's not recognized in the Psychiatric Diagnosis Manual. Earlier this month, the American Psychiatric Association announced the new manual, to be published in 2013, will create a behavioral addictions category with gambling, but not sex.
Addiction is like a handy metaphor. Whether it's a good clinical diagnosis, whether the concept of sex addiction helps us understand people's behavior, that's an entirely different subject.
Whether it's a true medical addiction or not, plenty of people go to rehab for it. David Duchovny did. He even plays a sex addict on his TV show, Californication.
Are you okay? You look a little pale.
Benoit DENIZET-LEWIS calls himself a recovering sex addict and defends the label.
Sex addiction is real, and it's an incredibly powerful, maddening addiction in the same way that, drugs or alcohol or gambling is.
But there are researchers who argue hypersexual disorder should be officially recognized, that being unable to resist risky sexual behavior, from porn to promiscuity to strip clubs, can cause very real damage to people's lives.
And while sex addiction isn't in the current psychiatric diagnosis manual, many therapists are hoping for a hypersexual disorder to be included in the next edition. And this isn't just an academic exercise, Robin. This is about health insurance coverage. It's about legitimacy. It's all of those.
There are many layers to it, but as you said, it's a great debate in the medical community. It's really divided therapists as, is it legitimate sex addiction as a diagnosis? We're joined now by experts on both sides of the issue. Terry Real, you know him, he's a family therapist and relationship expert. And Craig Fabricant is a psychologist at Hackensack University Medical Center nearby in New Jersey. Good to have both of you gentlemen here with us. So you think yes?
Absolutely. You know, AA defines addiction as any persistence of behavior in the face of known harmful consequences. Many of these men and women have sworn over and over again they're going to stop, and they simply can't. It's an addiction. And
you've given an example of that with a patient.
I treat a lot of these people. I treat a sex addict, CEO of a company, could not get through a board meeting. He would fake a call, run down to the Fenway, pay for sex, run back and finish the meeting. He couldn't go for 5 hours without sex.
But I'm looking at Craig and he's going like, you're not, but you don't see that as an addiction, what he just described.
No, I see it more as a behavior problem, a compulsion, a strong habit. I look at addiction more as a biological process with very serious withdrawal effects, things that affect the biology of the body for long-term use.
But medically, what's the difference between a bad habit, behavior, and addiction?
Well, I look at addiction as drugs, alcohol, nicotine, where it competes with brain centers and it changes the body chemistry. And I don't see that as much for sexual behavior. There are compulsions, and yes, we may ultimately find that there are some, neurological sites, but we don't have it yet.
There are two problems that I have with that. One is, I think it's an old definition of addiction, which defines addiction as withdrawal. I just asked you, do you see cocaine as an addiction?
Yes.
And rats will dose themselves with the cocaine unto death, but there is no withdrawal. So I think that's an older form of what we see as addiction. The other is that we know that there are processes like gambling, I think sex, like risk-taking, that throws your body into specific fight or flight kind of, it kicks out endorphins, and we think, you're right, we don't have it nailed yet, but we're pretty sure that what's going on is that you're producing inside your body very similar chemicals to what you would take outside.
I think some of this too, Robin, is about how it's perceived in the broader community, right? I mean, a lot of my friends are very skeptical when talking about sexual addiction, but I spoke to the Harvard researcher who's trying to have this included in the DSM, and Dr. Marty Kafka is his name, and he said, you know, 40 years ago, people rolled their eyes about, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous and whether alcoholism is a true addiction. And so some of this is about acceptance in the broader community.
I think it's about shifting from thinking of addiction as purely substances to beginning to understand that you can kick your body into hyper states that become addictive. We understand this with gambling. That's gotten some acceptance, but I think we need to broaden it to other activities.
But then you've also got the situation where in a relationship where two people really enjoy sex and want to have sex every day.
Yeah. There's a difference between...
But he's on a good point here, because some people would say, what's the difference between just a healthy sex drive?
And they can't live without it. Or somebody who is just has it on their mind constantly because of who they might see.
Yeah, that's great. What I'm talking about is risky sexual behavior that you know is dangerous and you can't stop yourself from doing. I'm talking about medicating bad feelings or stress by sex in the same way that you would with alcohol or drugs, self-medication. I'm talking about...
These are symptoms that you should be looking for?
These are symptoms, that's right. These are the symptoms you should be looking for. Kind of obsession with sexual material is rarely confined to your intimate partner.
I'm looking at Craig over here.
Yeah, because sex also is part of the biology of having sex. There's the intense pleasure. There's the release of endorphins, which is very relaxing, very mellowing, you know, the runner's high. Is that going toward the same thing for that individual?
I think it is. It's a question of degree, but by defining it as an addiction, you open up the door to 12-step programs, which I think are hands down the treatment of choice. And so this may be a Talmudic conversation, but the implications for treatment are real.
This is a conversation that we could continue on and on. Craig and Terry, thank you, Juju. This is something that has been debated a lot on our message board. And go on online and let us know what you feel about this.